Right, so a warm welcome to all. This is day one of our new lecture series, Great Minds in Heritage and Historic Houses. I'm really thrilled to have such a wonderful panel of speakers from all over the world. And it is my intention to really also build bridges between Asia and the West. And I hope that this event will also result in potential collaborations, new projects, and exchange of ideas. So thank you very much for coming. And I like to have this event very interactive. So I also urge you, the audience, please introduce yourself, say where you come from, because especially during the pandemic, and I just said I've really been kind of stuck on campus for the past year. I think this is a nice opportunity for us to meet our colleagues. And I must say, during the pandemic, I actually met a number of new friends that I might otherwise not have met. And I was able to participate in so many fantastic events and see what is happening in the heritage sector and the museum world all over the world. So I'll just give a brief introduction, very brief, because I don't want to take too much time away from our speakers. And because we've spread out the event over the week, so this is basically an introduction and an explanation what I thought and what my intention was with this lecture series. Let me just share my screen. Objects and subjects, global contexts and multiple histories, dilemmas and opportunities for historic houses. So the title is really linked to the entire lecture series, and the lecture series is linked to events that are going on, such as the pandemic and serious events and political events, and also are linked very closely to the establishment of the Center for Historic Houses in 2019. So we have divided the event in these 4 areas because all of them are associated with historic houses, and sometimes the people who are involved in these areas don't necessarily talk the same language, don't necessarily have the same goals. And I think it is important for us to talk to each other. And you might be surprised that there is no overall theme, but the theme is actually the people of the institutions and the historic houses, because I think it is really the time to ponder what we are about and what we want to achieve, and to what extent we might have to redefine our goals. So today we are starting with a panel on historic houses, museums, and curation. And of course, it is the whole question about exhibition practice, curatorial practice. What is the difference between a museum and a historic house? In the Indian context, the Center for Historic Houses is currently trying to establish a network for palace museums, historic house museums. The term such is not really used in the Indian context. So we are looking at exchange of ideas and also collaborating with our colleagues in the West. I'm really pleased that Jean-Baptiste will be involved in some of the workshops we are planning to do, and I'm very excited about this. The other aspect is heritage education, heritage interpretation. This is a field I think that is very much needed in India. There's not so much, especially not so many opportunities for children. And especially now with the pandemic, we really hope to engage with children also in a digital way, and to really use this as an opportunity for local history. And of course, heritage management and entrepreneurship. In our context, we have invited owners of historic houses to talk about their ideas, because this is also very different, and people are sitting in a different boat from someone who's working for an institution and might not be concerned about the survival of the house during the pandemic. And many people have actually lost their houses during the pandemic. Many museums will also never open their doors again. We shouldn't forget this. And finally, we have a panel devoted to conservation. So we started our online initiative during the pandemic with this new lecture series, Resilience Historic Houses and Their Custodians. And our audience was particularly interested in Asian studies, Asian histories. And also we were giving a platform to the erstwhile royal families and the princes, maharajas, who disappeared from public life after independence. And I'll go a little bit into this. So today is a little bit experimental because our audience is different. And of course, we are all really interested in audiences as well. And how we can best engage them and what we should offer. And maybe the audience can also be wrong at times. If I think of, let's say, Auschwitz concentration camp and dark tourism, we had cases of people kissing in the gas chamber. How do we deal with such problematic behavior and difficult histories as well? So you might be surprised that there is no overall thematic approach. And the reason behind the title is that the historic houses themselves and those who care for them should be the focal point of our discussion. The houses and their custodians, whether owners, curators, or managers, and either their families or associated institutions. And we should use this also as a time for celebration and reflection to see what went wrong and what can be improved, what were the challenges. So recent debates and events from the pandemic to political events have caused us all to rethink our roles and the purpose and contributions of the historic houses and the institutions we are associated with. And we really have a number of institutions today, and many of them are very, very well known, but do we really know about their intention, their purpose?
Okay, did she freeze up?
Hi, buddy. Maybe there's a wall mounting kit in there upstairs too. I don't know. Yeah, well, actually.
The program. Hi, I'm very sorry about the network problems. If this persists, I would suggest that the speakers are starting. So let me just reconnect. Sorry. I hope you're able to see the screen and hear me. Yeah.
We can see and hear you, Esther.
Thank you. So the purpose behind the lecture series is to build bridges and to enter discussion, not only between Asia and the West, but also between the various stakeholders involved in the care, promotion, revival, and interpretation of historic houses. And sometimes these roles and discourses can differ profoundly, as we've seen in the press and social media over the past few weeks. So, no, I just, it didn't work. So the areas of the Center for Historic Houses are, of course, represented also in this lecture series. We are interested in research of their, but we are not only satisfied with this, because we are interested in business models and how these business models can actually be opportunities for local communities, and but also non-visitor related, especially during the pandemic. We are really interested in visitor experience, heritage interpretation, lifelong learning, interior design, and many other ideas to improve the experience of the visit of historic houses. And we are particularly interested in forming partnerships both with owners of historic houses and colleagues both in India and abroad. For us, it is important that the historic house is connected to social issues. We really see them as a catalyst of social change, and we want to address some of the very fundamental issues that are important to society at the moment, such as, for instance, water and heritage, aspects of pollution, sustainability. And that's what we did with our workshop, on international workshop on water and heritage, working particularly with ICOMOS, that has really been spearheading this research on water and heritage in the Netherlands. And what we found when I started the center in 2019 is a building, such a beautiful building such as this one, Jindal Palace, one of the best examples of water palaces in India. When you come there, you can't spend 1 rupee to benefit the local community. There is no shop, no cafe, it's really just the building itself. And if we see something like that, then I really feel, you know, my hands are itching. I really want to do something, and I feel it's such a lost opportunity. And I was talking to Amy Casmin from the Financial Times when we were organizing the Water and Heritage excursion as part of the conference. And she actually then was interested in it and went to it and confirmed what I had told her. But we also have other great examples, fort, which is a private fort, part of the erstwhile royal family of Jawbo. And here we have a kind of a house that is very well managed. We have a museum shop, we have a cafe, and we also have a gallery space and even a visitor center. So you see really many different approaches to heritage, and some with more potential and others that are really fully developed. And this is one of the very best examples I find in India. Very often when we talk about historic house museums in India, we don't really have collections. We have just the rooms, and the rooms in itself, the house in itself is the museum. And it's particularly the artwork, for example, the wall paintings such as in Bundi, which has been well documented by Milo Beach, for example. And City Palace, where we're going to hear more about in a minute, which also has a gallery space and the actual rooms that you can visit. If we talk about historic houses and palaces in India, of course, we think about the Maharajas. And there is a huge interest in the Maharajas. And we have this vision of their fascination with gems, Rolls Royce, huge palaces. The Jawbo Palace is one example to provide work actually for people in the early 20th century. So it's only, it's not the full part of the full story that we see, but there are underlying social issues at hand. And these fantastic collections from the Mughal period, for example. However, the situation of owners and how they're portrayed is really ambivalent. So we see them to some extent in the context of tourism, but we also have a very serious engagement. That's what we really want to promote with the Center for Historic Houses, by looking at their collections and studying them. So we've had a number of interesting exhibitions, one at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris on the Maharaja of Indore and his modernist palace, or the Altani collection, and an important exhibition also at the V&A. So this is the more interesting part, which goes beyond this kind of voyeurism, but to really look at the people in context with the material and architectural history. So this, again, you see this, and it's also really, the theme is exploited in a way in, in the business world, in the tourism world. How can we connect these different worlds, the academic world, the research, the museums, and houses, not only in India, but elsewhere. And we felt that there is a need to promote the idea of historic houses beyond. I'm very sorry about the internet problems. I would suggest to hand it over to the next speaker, because it's very disrupting for you. So with what I've said, basically, there are so many potentials of collaboration, of looking at different angles at the historic houses. And I'm really curious to hear your